Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Joanna Baxter and the Platform Party.
I'll do a health speech instead. You can do a great Yeah.
Morning, conference. Hello. Yay. I see not everyone was ruined by the Labour Students' disco last night. That was just me, so apologies for the husky voice. Welcome to this session of conference. We're going to start by receiving the report of the Conference Arrangements Committee, so please welcome to the Chair of the Committee, Harry Donaldson.
Chair of Conference, formally moving CAC Report 4. As you will see from the detailed agenda on page 3, this afternoon we will hear from the leader of the party, Jeremy Corbyn. The speech will be at 2 p.m. and entrance to the hall is by ticket only. Queues should be expected and delegates are thanked in advance for their patience. Every delegate is allocated a seat for the whole of conference, including the leader's speech. However, delegates are advised to take their seats promptly, as empty seats may be given to visitors shortly before the speech begins. If a delegate finds that someone is sitting in their allocated seat, they should speak to a steward or a member of staff. For those without a ticket, there is an official screening in Hall 1 ACC. Seats are on a first-come, first-served basis. Later this morning, the Child-Refugee Composite will be debated as part of the Home Affairs debate. The words of the composite shall be found on page 4. The card vote results of the constitutional amendments can be found on page 6 of the report. The results of yesterday's NCC ballots will be announced shortly by the Chief Scrutineer. Following the announcement, printed copies will be available from the party stand. The CAC wishes to thank all the venue staff, security staff, police, the party staff and stewards who have worked so hard throughout the conference to make it an experience for all. Conference, you will recall that in my report of yesterday, I informed Conference that a further emergency motion was being considered yesterday. For the purposes of information, I can confirm to Conference and inform Conference that that motion has now been withdrawn. I hope you all enjoy the final day of Conference. I move CAC Report 4.
Thank you so much, Harry. Can I just ask if anyone has any questions or wishes to make any points on the Conference Arrangements Committee report? One delegate over there.
Good morning, Conference. My name is Wojtek Kowalewski. I'm the first-time delegate, and I'm really not a speaker today. It's just a quick point, really point of order. Shimon Peres has died, and I would ask Conference to commemorate this great figure, architect of Oslo Agreement and Nobel Prize winner. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for information, we were actually going to make a moment about that after we'd taken the CAC report. Were there any other points or questions on the report? No? Harry?
Okay, just quickly responding to the delegate, we have taken consideration of the request and that will be timetabled at some point during the course of today. Thank you.
Conference, we're just going to move this up the agenda slightly. So, on behalf of the entire Labour Party, we need to pay respect to Shimon Peres, who passed away today. Shimon was a giant of Israeli politics, serving as both President and Prime Minister. His Nobel Peace Prize for his negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians reminds us of the peace to which we must all aspire. And I would suggest, Conference, that we all stand and pay respect for a minute. Thank you. Thank you very much, Harry, and thank you very much for all your work on the Conference Arrangements Committee. You're a bit of a star. So can I just ask for a show of hands for everyone in favour of accepting the report, please? And those against? Thank you very much, Conference. Thank you, Harry. I will now ask Cathy Mitchell, Chief Scrutineer, to present the results of the NCC ballot.
Chair, Conference. I'm Cathy Mitchell, Chief Scrutineer. I have the results for the NCC CLP section ballot. Cosin Maggie received 121,918 votes. That's 53.3%. Day Peter, 4,831, that's 2.11% of the vote. Hall David, 5,775, 2.52% of the vote. Singh Dalveer, 4,657, that's 2.04% of the vote. Williamson Chris, 91,540, 40.02% of the vote. The total votes cast were 228,721. So therefore, Maggie Cosin is elected with 121,918 votes. Thank you, Conference.
Thank you very much, Cathy, and congratulations to Maggie and commiserations to the other candidates. So, Conference, we're now going to start the debate on Home Affairs and Equalities. The Policy Commission annual report is on pages 30 to 35 of the National Policy Forum report, and the Priorities Issues document is on pages 82 to 89. We will also be taking the contemporary composite on child refugees. Conference, I should say at this point that we have a lot of speakers this morning, so I would ask everybody to keep their contributions brief so that we can take as many delegates as possible. I'll now ask Ellie Reeves to move the Policy Commission annual report on behalf of the National Executive Committee. Ellie.
Conference, it has been a privilege to have co-convened the Home Affairs Policy Commission with Andy Burnham this year. The Commission has covered a broad range of policy areas, including home affairs, justice, equalities and the Cabinet Office portfolios. To start the debate today, I want to talk about two issues close to my heart: gender equality and access to justice. Conference, as an employment rights lawyer providing advice and assistance to women facing maternity discrimination, I see day in, day out how the Tories have made access to justice unaffordable for so many people by reducing the scope of legal aid, introducing tribunal fees and closing courts. Since the introduction of employment tribunal fees, there has been a 70% reduction in claims. It costs £250 simply to submit a claim to an employment tribunal and another £950 to go to a hearing. If you've lost your job, have rent or mortgage to pay, children to feed and clothe, then for a lot of people, they simply cannot afford to submit a claim, no matter how badly they have been treated. This is a travesty for access to justice, and the next Labour government must abolish employment tribunal fees. Another huge barrier for access to justice, particularly in maternity discrimination claims, is time limits. You've only got 3 months in which to bring an employment tribunal claim. Think about that for a moment. You've been dismissed or demoted whilst on maternity leave, or perhaps you've been denied a bonus. You've got a newborn baby who wakes every few hours at night, so you're most probably exhausted. But the clock is still ticking on your claim. That is why the Equality and Human Rights Commission urged the government to increase the time limit in respect of maternity claims. And what did the government say? No. The next Labour government must reverse this injustice. Conference, as a working mum, I know firsthand the challenges that women face in the workplace. It is unacceptable that the gender pay gap still stands at almost 20%, that 1 in 5 mothers experience harassment or negative comments in the workplace related to pregnancy or flexible working, that 29% of women earn less than the living wage, and that childcare costs have risen by over 30% since 2010. And Conference, I was saddened to see new statistics released at the weekend which showed that women would not reach pay equality with men until 2069. Certainly not in my working life, maybe not even in our children's working lives. Conference, we must take action to reverse this now. Conference, yesterday I spoke to a mum who had just had her request for flexible working refused. Fighting back tears and having been up all night with worry, she told me that it would be hard enough leaving her baby to go back to work, but that it was being made a whole lot worse by an employer unsympathetic to the needs of working mums. Yet there is so much more that could be done. All jobs should be advertised on a flexible working basis, making work flexible by default. All dads should be entitled to proper paid paternity leave. Childcare should be affordable and accessible to all so that no parents are left behind. And it should be mandatory for all employers to publish details of the gender pay gap in their organisation so that companies who fall behind are named and shamed. Let's push forward with these changes to end gender equality in the workplace once and for all. Conference, I want to end with this. Today marks the end of my 10-year term on Labour's National Executive Committee, and it has been a privilege and an honour to serve you for the last decade. As I move on to new challenges and refocus my efforts on supporting women facing discrimination at work, I will be fighting tirelessly for equality and for justice. Thank you, Conference.
Thank you, Ellie, and it's been a privilege to work with you on the National Executive Committee. I'll now invite the Shadow Lord Chancellor, Richard Bergen, to address us.
Conference, I'm honoured to open this debate on justice and home affairs, and I'm proud to speak to you today as Shadow Justice Secretary. But Conference, I do have a confession to make. Before entering Parliament, I was a lawyer. You can cheer the bits later on, don't worry. A trade union lawyer, representing people injured at work because bosses cut corners, representing people sacked because of their gender or the colour of their skin, representing people not paid a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. Conference, 10 years of that taught me an important lesson. The lesson that justice and the rule of law are essential ingredients to create a fairer society. The type of society that the labour movement, our movement, has always fought for. The legal profession in our country is much derided, as the boos earlier on showed. But who is it that defends the rights of striking workers in the courts? Who is it that represents victims of domestic violence? Who is it that prosecutes criminals who terrorise working class communities? And who is it that provides legal assistance to the heroic grassroots campaigns for justice for Orgreave, justice for Shrewsbury 24, and justice for the families of those killed at Hillsborough? And Conference, I want to pay tribute to those families, and I want to pay tribute to our Shadow Home Secretary, Andy Burnham, for backing them all the way. Justice goes to the heart of what we are as a movement and the values we hold dear. It's the justice system that protects our freedoms, our rights, and helps hold our society together. But Conference, I'm sure that you're all aware that our legal system is creaking under the strain of this Conservative government's brutal onslaught of austerity and ideological dogma. The privatisation of our prisons, the privatisation of our probation service, making the working conditions of our dedicated prison and probation officers tougher and tougher, cutting legal aid to the poorest and imposing, as we've heard from Ellie, unaffordable employment tribunal fees, slashing the Ministry of Justice budget by a whopping and reckless 34%. But what of the flag bearer of these failing policies? Let me turn to my Conservative opponent, also from Leeds, Liz Truss. Now, believe it or not, she's best known for railing against, ranting against even, the importation of foreign cheese, if you can remember back to that conference speech. But it's fair to say that her appointment as Justice Secretary wasn't universally welcomed. Many said that as another non-lawyer in the role, she didn't fulfil the legislative requirement for a person qualified by experience. Her colleague, Lord Foulkes, even resigned from the front bench because of it. Just imagine that. Others criticised her for being loyal to her party leader, although there's nothing wrong with that. But what I will criticise Liz Truss for, Conference, is voting for legal aid cuts, for privatising our probation service, and for closing down the courts we need to deliver justice in our country. Conference, we need a change of direction. Justice policy will be at the core of Jeremy's drive for a fairer society. And I must take this opportunity, Conference, to thank Willie Back for the review he's conducting into how best to deliver the improved access to justice we need in our country. a major review requested by our Labour Party leader. But conference, one of the most reprehensible policies of the Conservative government has been the introduction of employment tribunal fees. It means that those who have faced discrimination in the workplace, often people struggling to make ends meet, are expected to fork out even more to try to achieve justice. And it will come as no surprise to delegates in this hall that the number of cases brought to employment tribunals has plummeted, as many just give up hope that they will ever achieve justice. But conference, under Labour, people will not only be able to hope, people will be able to take action, because Labour will abolish these cruel employment tribunal fees once and for all and give wronged workers the access to justice that they deserve. It was once said that the degree of civilization in a society can be judged by entering its prisons. And what is the state, conference, of our prisons today? Overcrowded, understaffed, awash with drugs. Conference, this must change, and under Labour it will change. No longer will profit and privatisation drive policy. We will do all we can to ensure that when prisoners are released, they turn their backs on a life of crime. And conference, there is no one better to spearhead this progressive agenda than our Shadow Prisons Minister, Joe Stevens. Conference, we will achieve our goals by working with, and most importantly, treating with respect those who work in our justice system and the trade unions that represent them. Human rights have always been at the top of Labour's agenda. Indeed, it was our Labour government that introduced the Human Rights Act in the first place, that protects so many of the freedoms that we cherish. An act introduced and upheld by three great Labour Justice Secretaries, Derry Irvine, Charlie Faulkner and Jack Straw. And conference, today I want to assure them, and I want to assure all of you, that in the aftermath of Brexit, Labour will fight to ensure that none of these hard-won rights and freedoms are diluted or diminished by this Conservative government. So, conference, the next Labour government will have much to do. Ending austerity, rebuilding public services, and delivering a fairer society. At the heart of this approach will be strengthening our justice system. Conference, we will turn our backs on the failed approach of the Conservative government so that once again our rights and our freedoms will be protected and enhanced. And in this way we will build together a fairer society that we can all be proud of. A Labour justice system in a Labour Britain. Conference, there's work to do. Together, let's get on and do it.
Thank you, Richard. Our next speaker is Kat Smith, Shadow Minister for Voter Engagement and Young People. Kat.
Thank you, Conference. It's a pleasure to speak in today's debate. This is an important debate for us to have, The policies being pursued by this Tory government will, if unchallenged, cause lasting harm to our communities. Cuts to local authorities have resulted in youth service spending being cut by £387 million since 2010. That's 3,600 youth worker jobs lost. That's 603 youth centres closed. And that's 138,000 places for young people gone. These cuts have had a disproportionate effect on some groups. Many LGBT-specific youth services have been forced to close, and because of the structural racism and failures in our education system, young black people have been disadvantaged more than their peers. This is a false economy. Rather than supporting young people now, the government is storing up problems. These problems will grow. They will become more complicated and cost more to address in future years. Figures for poverty, material deprivation and unemployment all show young people suffering the most. It's clear, young people and future generations have been disproportionately hit by failing Tory austerity. The challenge for us, Conference, is how do we respond? We need to expose the Tories for what they are. They are the party of the past. The legacy of David Cameron's government is a nation divided. Theresa May was at its heart, and she will not unite the country. She cannot give Britain the change we need. It is our responsibility as Labour to heal these divisions. It would be wrong to allow an artificial divide to be created between our younger people and older generations. We need to stand together. Young people want to know that there'll be a state pension, not only to look after their parents and grandparents, but one that will be there for them too. And our parents and grandparents, well, they want to see the next generation well educated, engaged and healthy. But age is not the only divide the Tories have sought to create. Their failing austerity agenda says there's not enough to look after refugees. There's not enough to support our homeless. There's not enough to support our women's refuges, and not enough to support proper care and support for disabled people. But Conference, make no mistake, austerity is a choice made by the Tories. It is not an inevitability. Their failed policies are taking the country backwards. Theresa May wants to return us to an education system that most of the country moved on from 40 years ago. And I am proud that as a Labour Party, we are engaging with young people and investing in our future. Restoring the educational maintenance allowance and student grants will give young people the opportunity to fulfil their potential. Labour will ensure that education is not just a commodity for those who can afford it, but is financially accessible to everyone. We want a society that will support future generations in education, in training and in the workplace, and we have a historic opportunity. Young people are more politicised than they have been for generations. Around 750,000 young people registered to vote in the month prior to the EU referendum. And then after that surge in voter registration, we saw a 20% jump from the general election in young people turning out and using their vote. The Tories have ignored this. The Tories are too busy disenfranchising the 2 million people in their rush to gerrymander constituency boundaries. In contrast, Labour, we've listened to our young people. We heard your demand for votes at 16, and we did all we could to secure 16 and 17-year-olds a vote in the referendum. A referendum that impacts their lives more than anyone, given the Tories have no answer to what Brexit means. Austerity, grammar schools and Brexit chaos, the Tories are looking to the past. It is Labour that is the party of the future. We lead the polls amongst young people, and tens of thousands of young people have joined the Labour Party since the referendum. And I am proud that we have the largest political youth wing in Britain. In fact, we have more members aged under 27 than UKIP has in total. And conference, I attended the Young Labour events at this conference, and I've heard the ideas our young members have, and they have so much to offer our party. We must value them. They must be more than just people to deliver leaflets. They should also be our elected representatives, our policy makers and our political leaders, perhaps even an England football manager. For too long, we have called our young members the future of the Labour Party. Well, conference, they are not. They are the Labour Party. We are all the Labour Party. Our future, our country's future, depends on us all being united. When life is becoming harder for the majority of people, we cannot let the divide and rule politics of the Tory party distract from our mission. We have a moral, political and historic obligation to work together on behalf of working people. Conference, we are one party, we are one family, we are one Labour. Thank you.
Thank you, Kat. We will now take Contemporary Composite 11 on child refugees to be moved by Walthamstow CLP, and could Bracknell CLP be ready to second, please?
Helena Dollimore, Walthamstow CLP. Conference, we meet this week as the conflict in Syria deepens and the plight of the Syrian people worsens. After a glimmer of hope at the start of the month with the ceasefire, the Syrian people are now being bombed relentlessly and have been without aid for months. The future of Syria is hanging by a thread. Aleppo is without running water. There is an outbreak of deadly meningitis, and yet more reports of chemical attacks. In Calais, hundreds of unaccompanied children are living in squalid conditions that should shame us in a developed country. Many of them have a legal right to come to this country and join their family here in the UK. But the unsympathetic government of Theresa May is sitting on their claims and delaying this. Meanwhile, these children are dying, desperately trying to cross the channel by clinging to the bottom of lorries or rickety boats. Conference, only the most desperate and hopeless of situations leads a parent to put their child on an overcrowded boat without a life jacket to cross the Mediterranean. Since the start of this year, more than 3,000 people have died making that journey. That's the same as the number of people in this room. These are human beings. Politicians in this country should ask themselves, what will happen if we allow a generation to grow up without food, water, or an education? Conference, those are not the ingredients of a stable and prosperous world. It is our job in the Labour Party to make sure that we in Britain live up to our international responsibilities. We should remind the Tory government that 86% of the world's refugees are hosted in developing countries. The number of refugees here in Europe or in Britain pales in comparison. And Conference, we must take our fair share of those fleeing conflict and persecution. We must also put pressure on the government to live up to the commitment they made to take 3,000 unaccompanied children in the Dubs Amendment. For Conference, we also have to get to the roots of the conflict and stop people fleeing in the first place. The people of Syria urgently need food, water, and shelter, and that will only come with another ceasefire. Theresa May and Boris Johnson must drag the US and Russia to the negotiating table until they agree another ceasefire. We must not stand by and watch when Assad drops chemical weapons on his own people. Conference, the amendment by the brilliant Alf Dubs and the work of our great Labour MPs like Stella Creasy and Yvette Cooper has achieved great things from the backbenches. But Conference, look how much more you can do when you win power. Our Mayor, Sadiq Khan in London, is showing the world that London is open to refugees. In Canada, Justin Trudeau has taken 25,000 refugees. And while she may not share our politics, Angela Merkel in Germany has shown true leadership by taking over 1 million refugees. Conference, our words and motions in this hall will mean little unless we beat the Tories. People fleeing conflict and oppression do not have a government to represent them, so it is our job in the Labour Party to speak up for them and show solidarity. The world is facing a humanitarian crisis, the likes of which we have not seen since World War II. We have a moral duty to act by giving asylum to those we can and by leveraging our influence in the world to secure peaceful solutions to conflicts around the world. Conference, history will judge us by how we respond to this conflict. So please support this motion and let's get a Labour government elected. Thanks.
Morning. Paul Bidwell, Bracknell CLP, Town Councillor and first-time Speaker. Every child around the world deserves the experience of their childhood. The situation in Calais is intolerable, with the number of unaccompanied children estimated to be now around 600. Why estimated? Because as I speak, we don't actually know. We don't even know how many have made it to this country and in what condition or sad situation they may find themselves in. No parent would send their child across the world in the hope of a better life unless they were extremely desperate. Very few daughters are sent because the parents know the dangers involved. However, all these children are vulnerable, all have very traumatic experiences. The children arrive in Europe full of hope, but obviously they are desperately missing their parents. Often, their parents never know they have made it this far. Some children have never been in school before in their lives, but the children I know who have made it to England have entered our schools and have done extremely well. They are so motivated to succeed and repay this country that has given them a chance to survive. But the children in Calais, the ones that are still there, are now losing hope. They are so vulnerable to recruitment and abuse by others. The immigration bill stated that some of these children will be supported to enter Britain, but only those who arrive before March 31st. However, although more arrive each week, the government has not kept its promises to Lord Dubs. Even food for these children is now running low, and conditions will no doubt get worse with the onset of winter. Britain has a long history of supporting refugees. Conference, the government must act and act quickly to fulfil its commitment. Finally, I would like to share Abdul's story. He is a 10-year-old living alone in the Calais migration camp, the jungle. Abdul is bothered by the rats that rustle around him while he sleeps and by the effort involved in getting enough food in the wake of a decision last month by the French authorities to close down the cafe that fed children for free. He is frightened of the local police, who often spray tear gas at him. Most of all, he worries about his 9-year-old nephew, who is solely his responsibility, and who is struggling to cope with their 5-month flight from violence in Afghanistan. A 10-year-old child, I ask you. Conference, every child matters, not just those in the UK. Bracknell CLP second this motion.
Conference will take speakers from the floor on this in a second, but before I do, I'd like to invite Anne Black to report to us on the Women's Conference which was held on Saturday.
Okay, good morning, Conference. Chair Conference, Anne Black, NEC Vice Chair for Women, reporting back on Saturday's National Women's Conference. Angela Rayner, Shadow Minister for Women and Equalities, opened the conference, and in sharing her own life story, she showed us how she and Labour can help us reconnect with the disadvantaged and the voiceless who need a Labour government most. We heard from Kezia Dugdale, battling to rebuild Labour in Scotland, and we welcomed Jeremy Corbyn, newly re-elected with an even bigger mandate for his first major speech of the week. I reported on the work of the Gender Representation Group, part of Tom Watson's party reform project, and thanked Kate Green MP and Emma Meehan for their huge contribution, and look forward to working with Angie Rayner in the future. Our recommendations were aimed at promoting open, inclusive and welcoming local parties, at raising women's representation at every level of the party, and at increasing the proportion of women elected to public office in Parliament and everywhere else. There were then sessions on pension inequality, ending domestic violence, Workplace 2020, and the one I attended on reclaiming the internet. Yvette Cooper compared the situation with 30 years ago, where women were told that to stay safe, they should stay in after dark and certainly never go out alone. Then women refused to be imprisoned in their homes and went out and marched to reclaim the night. Now women who call out misogynistic, racist, anti-Semitic, homophobic abuse, who get rape threats and death threats, are told that to stay safe, they should just get offline. And our response now has to be the same as then. Why should women, and indeed men, be excluded from social media by threats and intimidation? And we can start within our party, following our leader Jeremy Corbyn's repeated absolute commitment to zero tolerance of all forms of abuse. Otherwise, women will not stand as councillors, they will not stand as MPs, they will not stand for the NEC, and they will not want to work for a party which does not defend them. And we had the ever-popular open mic session, where Dawn Butler's firm chairing allowed more than 40 women to speak on anything they chose: the impact of benefit cuts on women, standing candidates in Northern Ireland, closing magistrates' courts, abortion, and the double discrimination faced by women who are disabled or gay or from ethnic minority backgrounds in everything that they seek to do. After yesterday's rule changes, there will be an annual National Women's Conference with a formal role in policy making, and that's important because every year women bring their energy, their ideas and their experiences, and then it all disappears and we just come back and say the same thing again next year. We do have to now go back and develop structures and accountability without getting bogged down in endless references back, points of order, and arguing over what isn't a contemporary motion. And we have to keep the open, inclusive, tolerant atmosphere, which for members visitors and delegates, which makes Women's Conference special. So I'll see you next year in Brighton, and thank you, Conference.
Okay, Conference, we'll now take speakers from the floor if you'd like to indicate. So, let me just say, there's a woman there. There's somebody with a red bag over there, and the gentleman right there.
Conference, Katrina Gilman representing Unison. As a police and justice member, I have seen firsthand the savage cuts to our policing. This has affected many of our members. And although in last year's autumn statement, George Osborne announced that the police protect us, so we'll protect them, Conference, we all know that is just another Tory lie. The reality I live and breathe every day, our members losing their jobs, including PCSOs. And there's been a loss of these jobs into the imposition of the Tories' cuts. And it is our communities that pay the price. Since 2010, there are now 5,109 fewer PCSOs on our streets, helping to keep us and our communities safe. We must work for a Labour government that can bring back community policing and help our members to keep us safe. We are told that crime is falling, yet actually we know that many offences go unreported and many people are now targeted online. Cybercrime is on the increase. The Office for National Statistics report that 1 in 10 adults has been a victim of hate crime. And now the world I work in has changed since the start of the referendum campaign. Part of my day job is monitoring and promoting the reporting of hate crime. Since Brexit, it now feels that I've gone back in time. The appalling abuse suffered by hate crime victims has significantly increased, with the tone of racist hate crime following a similar theme to the toxic election message, which I and many others were appalled by during the referendum. I am proud to be a Unison member who fought and continues to stand up against all forms of discrimination and hate speech, wherever we find it. Our General Secretary said on Monday, surely it is time for all of us to take responsibility for cooling the political and social temperature, stepping back from the brink, finding ways to build bridges, not barricades. Hatred and contempt have no place in our politics, and they should have no place in our communities. And Conference, I'll add, it has no place in this hall or in our party. We must stand together, unions, party and members of our community, against hate crime. Because nobody should be victimised just because of who they are. Hate crime has a devastating impact on victims and increasing the fears in our communities. We oppose the cuts to policing and ensure we send a message from here, our Labour Party. We will always have zero tolerance to such vile behaviour. Thank you.
Colleagues, Conference, since the referendum, the outcome has faced a huge rise in hate crime. Many people who have previously harboured xenophobic feelings now feel encouraged to be abusive and violent. Sadly, the comment to go home has been expressed and heard too many times. I was told to go home. I recall replying, I am home, I'm in Wakefield. We are witnessing a frenzy of hatred, signs describing Polish people as vermin, school children being told to go home, people wearing T-shirts with the word "Start Repatriation," anti-Muslim literature being distributed, shops being firebombed, residents waking up to racist graffiti in their neighbourhood with the N and P words. The list goes on. Recently, we heard of the murder of a Polish man in Harlow, followed by a number of physical assaults on members of the community. In equal measures, this is sad and disgusting. Frankly, this makes me really angry, Conference. Many people don't report these attacks, they suffer in silence because they are afraid, feel ashamed, or don't have the trust in the police. Colleagues, let me shed a light on this, the human impact of racial violence. People now adjust this to their daily pattern of life to safeguard themselves and their well-being. I have found myself doing the same, looking us behind me, surveying fellow passengers when using public transport, making sure I stand away from the edge of a platform, and making sure I sit in the middle of a carriage just in case. Like domestic violence, racial harassment leaves you feeling humiliated, abused, degraded and worthless. You soon have low self-esteem, your confidence is shattered, depression can set in, you feel shame even though you are shamed. This is a reminder of the 60s and 70s to the days of no Irish, no blacks and no dog signs in the windows that I recall my parents telling me about. People have genuine concerns at the lack of affordable homes, decent resource schools and access to health, and rightly wanting decent wages and conditions at work. However, it was and is wrong to blame this situation on migrants and foreigners. The blame lies with the successive governments and bad employers. So what is to be done? Raising awareness and educating on tackling racial hatred and harassment safely, and reporting the matter correctly. In my region and nationally, we are looking to not just raise awareness, we are being proactive. Standing up to racism
Wind up, please.
affects and unites us all. Conference, I urge you to join us on this and look out for information coming through on the trade movement. Thank you.
Just before the speaker starts, I'd like to see an indication for other people who'd like to speak in the debate, and just so we can line people up. So the lady there, and the gentleman at the back with the tartan or striped tie.
Stubbs ex officio, Chair Conference. Tonight, in Greece, in Italy, in Calais, in Dunkirk, hundreds, thousands of children will be lying by the street in the jungle in Calais without any support, with nobody to protect them, probably not enough to eat, frightened, possibly the victims of criminality. And then there is a threat by the French to bulldoze a camp. If they bulldoze a camp, and don't make adequate, decent provision for the people there, that will be a disaster. And then the British government says, we're going to build a wall, 1.7 million, a wall. Whatever for, walls are negative. I'd say spend that 1.7 million on refugees, not on building walls. Let me also say this. I believe public opinion, when faced with the choice of helping child refugees or not, public opinion will say yes. I believe it's a safe issue, it's a great issue, it's an important issue. I don't denigrate other refugees at all, they're important too. But as far as children are concerned, I believe the majority of the British people would say, yes, we're willing to give safety to at least some of them. I've been to Calais a couple of times. There are some wonderful NGOs working there, volunteers, giving their time, their efforts to provide some help to the people there. They're wonderful people, and it's humbling to see such great people there doing it with very little publicity, with very little recognition. There was an amendment to the Immigration Act with which I had some involvement. It was passed. The Tories didn't want it. Eventually, with a few Tory MPs agreeing to back Labour MPs, the government gave in, and I had the pleasure of seeing Theresa May's name on the amendment. Fair enough, but that's not what it's about. The government said they would accept the letter and the spirit of the amendment. You'd think that wasn't bad. That'd be a good commitment. But what's happened? Under the terms of the Immigration Act, to the latest date, not a single child has come to Britain. I think that's a disgrace. The ones that come have been mainly those who have family here, who should have had the right to come anyway long ago, who've been identified by NGOs like Citizens UK. One of them had family here, and he was killed tragically on the road in Calais trying to get on the back of a lorry. Can I say this? If any of us were in the position of those kids in Calais, we'd be doing the same thing. If there's no hope, you take a chance even on a dangerous crossing. Now, what can we do? I believe there's only one thing at the moment, and that is political pressure. Political pressure on the government to stick by their obligation under the terms of the Immigration Act, not to back out, not to find excuses, to get on with it and bring these children here. There's a children and social work bill going through Parliament. That will have an amendment which will seek to protect refugees as well, another way of bringing political pressure. There's been a fantastic response in local communities. There are organisations, groups of people who are campaigning on behalf of refugees. That is warming, that is encouraging. Some local authorities are stepping up to the mark and doing it. Let me finish by this. I came to this country as an unaccompanied child refugee. I was a lot younger, I was 6 years old. This country gave me great opportunities. I shall always be thankful for that. And I would like other unaccompanied child refugees who get to Britain in safety to have the same opportunities that I had.
Terence Smith, Brigangall constituency, proud town councillor and proud to be Britain's youngest mayor. Conference, we have seen youth engagement in our party explode over the recent years, and I say well done. It is young people that often face the Tory government the worst, scrapping in EMA, the raise in tuition fees, the scrapping of maintenance grants. This is unacceptable, and the Tories must be warned. You keep attacking students, and we will fight back through Labour. We must encourage young people in our constituencies to register to vote and to vote Labour. We must encourage young people to get involved. Stand as local representatives on your council. Stand to be key policymakers in their area. Tim Farron has the audacity at Lib Dem conference to encourage Labour members to vote Lib Dem. Well, listen to this, Tim. The students will never forget your lies as the last coalition. You said you would vote against any rise in tuition fees. And I'm sorry, Nick Clegg. Sorry will never be good enough. You lied to the voters. Labour will remember that. Students will remember that. In the colleges, in the universities, we will remember and we will vote Labour. The students are here. The students are the Labour Party, and we will fight back. Thank you, conference.
Vera Baird, Police and Crime Commissioner for Northumbria. Conference, in last May's elections, Labour PCCs took 3 constituencies off the Tories. We took Leicestershire, we took Humberside, and we took Cheshire. In fact, we think we started George Osborne's downfall by taking Cheshire, because his constituency of Tatton is right in the middle of it. And here's the lad who did it, David Keane. There are 16 Labour Police and Crime Commissioners. We run every metropolitan force, 2/3 of British policing, covering 21 billion people. We consult with our communities to find the policing priorities they want. We use our budget to make sure the police deliver it. We deliver almost all victim services. We have protected neighbourhood policing. All this despite that friend to the people, woman of the poor, Theresa May. Conference, she cut 23% of funding off Labour Northumbria's policing, and off Tory Surrey Conference, she cut just 12%. She says they can cut police because crime is down, but it's not. It's changing to high harm, formerly hidden crimes like child sexual exploitation and domestic abuse, and it is foolish to underfund those. But in most forces, only 23% of calls to police concern crime. The rest are about welfare. Those calls have increased hugely with health and local authority cuts, and half of them are about mental health. So an example of our work, we've designed a partnership with mental health trusts so that a community psychiatric nurse is out on shift with police. When an officer sees someone who needs help, he can call the nurse who can access health records as police cannot, and advice is given. Prior to that, the person had to be detained, taken to a psychiatric hospital, often long-term, until an assessment occurred. And the cops tell me the same people came round and round again. Well, now they don't. They get a good health outcome. They are out of the criminal justice system where they should never be, and we're saving 900 police hours a month. We are now a permanent part of Labour in government. We use our Labour values to transform crime prevention and community safety. Our re-elections last May and our victories last May show that working with communities is the road to success for us all. As a group of 16, we lobby government nationally, and I am shortly to meet the new Home Secretary. Can't wait. My force has lost, quite typically, over 400 officers and 1,000 police staff. And my message will be quite simple. For the future of our communities, Amber, no ruddy cuts.
Conference, Stella Creasy, Labour and Cooperative MP for Walthamstow. Conference, 10 days ago, a 14-year-old boy was killed trying to run across a motorway to jump on a lorry. Stuck in the Calais refugee camp on his own, he just wanted to get across the channel to be here with his family in the United Kingdom. He had given up hope that help was coming, so he decided to try to make the journey himself. Who knows what he could have become? What contribution to our country he could have made. I was so proud to stand with our Labour family this March, to be with Yvette and Alf Dubbs, who led that fight to force this government to do the right thing and help child refugees. That we would not leave them to risk their lives, crossing the sea, suffocating in lorries, in the hands of smugglers to get to a place of safety. I was so ashamed 3 weeks ago to stand with Alf in Calais and listen to children tell us they had been there for months. But that amendment, that promise we made, meant nothing. Because despite that vote, not a single child is yet to come here under the Dubs Amendment. It's a promise that Alf knows matters. He was a child we gave sanctuary to. We did not look the other way as children were in danger from the Nazis, and we should not look the other way now. There are over 1,000 children in that camp right now, some as young as 8. All of them running from conflicts, whether in Eritrea, Afghanistan, Sudan, or Syria, not of their own making, but making their lives hell. And in the last month, there's been a 51% increase. 11 children arriving every single day to dodge the tear gas and rubber bullets, to beg for food and shelter. Little boys trying to be big men, showing no fear, hiding in the bushes from the traffickers. Because there is not a single British or French official there to ask for help. And Conference, just as we are angry with this government as they ignore those children, so we should be proud of the many British volunteers out there filling the gap. The French asylum system has ground to a halt, and as elections approach and the far right goes strong, the politicians are competing to punish those children, not protect them. Now, that driver who hit that boy didn't stop, but because we are Labour, we will. We will not pretend that we don't see these children. Conference, there are many difficult and complicated problems facing Britain right now. How to deal with Brexit, an ageing population. Just what is the point of Liam Fox? But this isn't one of those complicated problems, because the problem isn't refugees, the problem is politicians. These kids need our government to do their job and put in place a process to safeguard them. Today, the Home Office knows of 387 children who have family here or a right to be here under the Dubs Amendment. They have somebody who could care for them if they could come here legally. But still, this government does nothing. Over the sea and out of Theresa May's mind. So these children sleep in tents with strangers because of a want of somebody to process their paperwork. And now they face a new threat.
Sorry, Stella, could you wind up, please?
Last time the French cleared the camps, over 100 children went missing. And I tell you this, Conference, people right now are wondering, what is the point of the Labour Party? Would we invent it in 2016 if we knew what we knew now? We exist for causes like this. We exist to speak up for children like this. We exist to make Britain a better country like this. Conference, we have 3 weeks to show the world that Labour and Britain can again be a force for good. So please back this motion and let's get those kids out of that camp by Christmas.
Conference, I think we've got room for just one more speaker before I ask Yvette to indicate that I saw that lady first, so I'm going with that.
Good morning, Conference. I'm Sarah Hyde. I'm the delegate for Islington South and Finsbury, and this is my first time speaking to Conference. I'm absolutely delighted to make this my first speech in Liverpool. I'm a proud Londoner, but with a maternal family from Liverpool. Several generations worked for J. Bibby and Sons just on these docks here. So really thank you, Liverpool, for the strong, tenacious women that brought me up. Conference, we know that austerity costs lives. Nowhere is this more evident than in our criminal justice system. I've worked in our prisons for the last 8 years, and whatever you think of prison and its purpose, it cannot be right that people are dying at the rate of 2 a week. There are 2 suicides a week that could be prevented because of the cuts that have been imposed by this pernicious Tory government. Some years in our prisons, there have been no murders at all. In the last year, there have been 6 homicides. That's what happens when you cut prison staff by 1/3. That's what happens when you close prisons with nowhere for people to go and just bring in a load of bunk beds to put more people in spaces made for 400-500 that now sleep 1,000. These places are receptacles of pain. When 70% of prisoners have 2 or more diagnosable mental health disorders, when 25% of women in prison have tried to take their own lives, 24% of people in prison have a care-leaving background. If we want to have less victims, not more, both inside prisons and outside, we have to act. We have to speak strongly on the state of our prisons. People are spending longer in their cells because of a shortage of staff. Now, I've worked in prisons, as I said, for a long time, but one memory that will never leave me was a day I walked into an association room to begin a counselling session with somebody, and a person was stood on the edge of a sofa with a homemade noose hung from the light fitting, and as they saw us walk in, they threw themselves off the sofa. We rushed in, we held this person up while shouting, and someone hit the emergency button, at which point about 10 prison officers appeared from nowhere. Now, this was 8 years ago. Would that happen today when you hit that button? I know the answer is no, because of the cuts to staffing. Many wings often only have 2 or 3 officers on them at any given time, and that is why there has been this increase, a 20% rise in the last year in the number of suicides in our prison. That is the rate of suicide in prison is 12 times that of the rate in the general population. We cannot tolerate this abuse. We must speak out against this abuse of power. The families of those in prison have suffered enough. Austerity kills. It is killing in our prison. And this is not justice. It is a national disgrace. We must hold this government to account and work for a Labour justice system with values of rehabilitation and the restoration of our communities at its heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Conference. I'd now like to invite Yvette Cooper to address us on the work of the Refugee Task Force. Yvette.
Conference, thank you. We have heard powerful stories, powerful speeches this morning, and ultimately the story of children. I'll take you back to the story of 2 children, aged 10 and 9. Primary school children by the side of a busy road. A 10-year-old whose father was killed when extremists took over their village, whose mother paid smugglers to take the boys away, and now they live on their own in a muddy tent. And each night they run along the side of a motorway waiting for a lorry going slow enough to climb aboard. And they get scared, and they should. Because 2 weeks ago, a 14-year-old fell off the lorry he clung to and was hit by a car. Killed trying to reach his brother in Britain. He had a legal right to be here, yet he lived for months in danger and squalor, and he died by the side of a road. How have we let this happen? Sometimes people say to me, this is not our problem. that we should just walk by on the other side of the road. But these are children whose lives are at stake. This is someone's young son. This is someone's teenage daughter. This is all of our children, our common humanity. Conference on Suffering Children. This country and this party must never turn our backs. And Conference, I want to pay tribute to those who are working so hard to help, to the community groups, organisations that we've worked with on the Refugee Task Force, Save the Children, Citizens UK, Help Refugees, UNICEF, the churches, the synagogues, the mosques, the Care for Calais, the community groups in towns and cities across the country. To thank Jeremy and Tom, to thank Andy Burnham and Kate Ossmall for the support they've given and continue to give for the Refugee Task Force work, for Stella and Fangham, who've played such important roles, to thank councils across the country, encouraged by Nick Forbes, who've stepped forward to help, and the campaigners from all parties who worked together to change the law so Britain could do our bit, just as our country did when we rescued 10,000 Jewish children from the Nazis in Europe. We heard earlier from Alf Dubs as one of those children, 6 years old, put on a train in Prague, bound for England to escape the war. 3/4 of a century on, Alf, lifelong campaigner for social justice, Labour councillor, Labour MP and then Labour Lord, each time leading the way with his amendment so that Britain does its bit, again to help a new generation of child refugees, giving them the new future our country gave him. Alf, we pay tribute to you today. But this is a global crisis that we face. Across the world, 65 million people have been driven from their homes by conflict or persecution. And you'll hear the government sometimes talk of the pull factor. Well, what of the push factor? You see some of those pictures from Aleppo. The bombs launched by the Syrian regime that rip through reinforced concrete, creating craters 20 metres wide. So there is no bunker, no cellar where families can hide. No wonder they run. Most incredible of all of those who stay, the doctors who stay to treat the wounded, the white helmets who stay to rescue those left alive. And on Saturday, our conference remembered the humanitarian work that Jo Cox fought for throughout her life. Today, I also want to pay tribute to Jo's family, who through their support for the white helmets are keeping Jo's work alive now. So no country can solve this alone, but every country needs to play its part. No one says this is easy. People are worried about security. They're worried that the system can be abused or will be out of control. And we should be clear, helping refugees does not mean open borders. We need strong border checks to stop the smuggler gangs, the criminals, the extremists exploiting the crisis. We need fast and robust asylum procedures so that refugees get swift help and illegal migrants have to return so everyone can have faith in the system. And we need proper integration plans and support for refugees and their families. At conference, immigration and asylum are different. Too often, this government treats them as though they are the same. Many people I've spoken to who want more controls on the number of people who come here to work also think we should do our bit to help those who have no safe home to which they can return. Refugees only make up around 5% of those who come to our country. So we must never let fear of the difficult politics of immigration paralyse us from helping desperate refugees. But nor must we be paralysed from debating immigration reform either, or our tin ear to the concerns of the country will undermine public confidence in our case for helping refugees. And just as people want to know the asylum system's fair and managed and controlled, they want to know that the immigration system is too. And it isn't racist to talk about how best every country should manage migration, or to say that whilst immigration is important, low-skilled migration should come down. And saying this should not spark a row, it should open up a sensible debate. In the referendum, a lot of people voted against free movement, but there's no consensus over what people voted for between cities and towns, between Scotland and England, young and old, and we should be part of a serious, thoughtful debate on what fair rules should be, and we cannot do that if we dig in from the start. But here is what we must never do. We won't use fear on immigration as reason not to help those most in need. We won't call people swarms or hordes when they are mothers, fathers and children. And we will never, ever do what Nigel Farage did in the referendum campaign and use a poster of desperate refugees to stoke fear and hatred. That man should be ashamed. So, conference. Our country rightly leads the way with international aid, and I'm glad the Conservative government has maintained that commitment, just as I'm proud that it was Labour campaigners many years ago who set that aid target and the last Labour government that brought it in. But on sanctuary, as we've heard earlier, our country just isn't doing enough. Just 3,000 of the promised 20,000 Syrian refugees have come. After the Dubs Amendment, so far no children from Greece or Italy have been helped. And Calais should be a scar on the conscience of both France and Britain. 10,000 people, 1,000 children alone. Scabies rife, violence and sectarianism in the camp, lorry drivers facing intimidation and serious safety threats, no one assessing the asylum cases, and no one protecting children. This is a shameful failure by the French authorities in their basic duty to keep children safe, but Britain has a responsibility too. Hundreds of those children have family in Britain, but they are still stuck waiting for months. The foot dragging, the bureaucracy, the delays are a disgrace. And conference, we should support the contemporary resolution today, and Parliament should back Alf Dubs' new amendment drafted by Stella Creasy to bring in safeguarding for child refugees. And France plans to dismantle the camp, moving people to accommodation centres across the country where asylum claims could be assessed. And they are right to do so, but there are no places being provided for lone children. And the last time the authorities cleared part of the camp, over 100 children just disappeared. So instead of the normal stalemate between our two countries, Britain and France, let us now agree each to take half of the lone children of Calais straight away. Get them into safety fast. Let's get all of those children into safety fast while their assessments are done, not wait until after the paperwork is finished. So there is no child left alone in the Calais mud, because this stalemate over children is dangerous. Too often, France says it's Britain's problem, Britain says it's up to the French. I am sick of this standoff when children's lives and safety are at risk. Both governments should get a grip and act. Conference, I've heard from child and teenage refugees who want to be engineers or scientists or doctors and footballers. The one who surprised me was a teenager helped by Citizens UK and our political campaigns to rejoin family in Britain who came to Parliament to meet us, and he said he wants to get involved in politics. He said that politics destroyed his country, but politics also saved his life. Now he wants to help, to give something back, just as Alf has done so many years on. Because politics matters. So if ever you despair, at the state of our politics, or even the divisions you think there are in our party, if ever you think of walking away, if ever you want to know why so many of us carry on, if you ever have any doubts, think of those children we can help. Think of them and the lives Labour governments have saved. Think of him, think of Alf, think of the Kindertransport, of future doctors, poets, Nobel laureates, husbands, sisters, mothers, children, of the amazing things that we can do together, the amazing people we can help, the amazing things that Labour can do. Conference, that is what our politics is all about. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Yvette. I'd now like to invite Andy Burnham to reply to the debate. Thank you, Andy.
What an incredible range of powerful, principled and passionate speeches we have had the privilege to hear this morning. Makes you proud to be Labour, doesn't it, Conference? Please join me in thanking all of our speakers this morning. Conference, this time next year, I hope to be addressing you in a new capacity as the first Labour Mayor for Greater Manchester. For someone 15 years a Greater Manchester MP and who grew up in the area that I represent, what an honour you have given me. In return, I will give my all to the people of Greater Manchester and make this party proud. It's no secret, though, Conference, that I also have ties here. Steve Rotherham asked me how I'm going to handle my football loyalties. It's very simple, Steve. I will be utterly impartial. As Mayor, I will be equally in favour of both City and United beating Liverpool on a regular basis. This year, this is the right place for me to deliver my last speech to you as Shadow Home Secretary. At last, a city of justice. But not a country of justice. 27 dark years tell us that, don't they? Our mission must be to make it so. A country where truth and justice are the equal right of all and no longer linked to class or connections. To this city, let's make this vow today, to make Hillsborough a moment of real change. Doesn't it make you angry, Conference, that 30 years on, former miners are still struggling for the truth? Ordinary people who are fighting for their jobs, their communities, their future, whose own country then try to put them on trial. It's why, even today, Britain still feels like two countries. Norman Tebbit, remember him? Well, he says an inquiry into Orgreave would be a waste of money. Well, he would say that, wouldn't he? Let me tell him why it's not. Kevin Thorne, a former miner who was at Orgreave, came to Westminster recently to lobby the Home Secretary for an inquiry. He was asked why, after all these years, he is still campaigning. He said this: "I want my grandchildren to be able to trust the police as I was brought up to do." That is why Orgreave Matters conference. Today's police officers don't deserve these clouds of the past hanging over them. They're out there right now putting themselves at risk, keeping us safe, and we thank them for what they do for us. But the miners aren't getting any younger. Don't they deserve peace and reconciliation too? Prime Minister, don't make people plead. Do the right thing. You invited the Orgreave campaign to submit a request for a full inquiry. Fulfil your promise on the steps of Downing Street to heal divides and order it now. The battle for truth is still too long and too hard. Only this week, families of those who died in the Birmingham pub bombings and who await a new inquest were denied legal support by the Home Secretary. How can that possibly be right? How can it be right that the victims of contaminated blood feel like they are still lost in a wilderness, searching for the truth? New injustices are happening all the time. Things are no better today for bereaved families at inquests than they were for the Hillsborough families in 1990. Many still have to scrape together their own legal costs. They are then thrown into courtrooms, raw with grief, only to find themselves up against an army of top QCs hired by public bodies who question them as if they were on trial. Des James battled for years for a new inquest into the death of his daughter Cheryl at the Deep Cut Barracks. When it finally took place, do you know what happened? The QC representing Surrey Police accused him and his family of distracting the force from the Millie Dowler investigation. This was the same QC who just weeks earlier was rerunning discredited slurs about Liverpool supporters in a Warrington courtroom. And do you know what sticks in the throat? He was paid by your taxes to do it. Public money should pay for the truth, not for the protection of backs in the public sector and for the destruction of bereaved families in a courtroom. That's not a country of justice conference. How much longer are we going to allow public money to be spent on the telling of lies? How much longer are we going to let the state put bereaved families on trial? For the rest of my time in Parliament, I will fight for the proposed Hillsborough law, a law to rebalance the justice system away from the establishment and decisively in favour of ordinary people. And I ask you to get fully behind that campaign. A law that says no public body can distort or withhold the truth at inquests, that guarantees all bereaved families a level playing field and equal legal funding. And yes, Home Secretary, that should include those Birmingham families. A country of justice. That's our cause. Achieving it means getting back to our campaigning best. This is my 10th conference speaking to you as a cabinet or a shadow cabinet minister. And it will be my last. Was that a cheer I heard in there? It is time for me to turn my full focus to Greater Manchester. That's why I can tell you all first today that I have asked Jeremy to plan for a new shadow cabinet without me, although I will of course stay until it is in place. It has been my privilege to represent our great party over these last 10 years. But at times, the last 12 months have made me profoundly sad. Sad to hear the achievements of our government, our Labour government, in which I was proud to serve, being dismissed as if they were nothing. Sad that old friendships have been strained. Sad that old friendships have been strained. Sad that some seem to prefer fighting each other than fighting the Tories. I have given my all to this party. I've always put its interests above those of factions and personalities. I have given exactly the same loyalty to all 4 of the Labour leaders that I have had the privilege to serve. Some say that makes me inconsistent. But you know what, Conference? I have an old-fashioned belief that a Labour government of any kind is 1,000,000 times better for my constituents in Lee than any Tory government. And that is more likely to happen if Labour is united. So let us unite. Let's have an end to divisive talk about deselections. But in return, let's have more respect for the democratic will of you, our members. This city has taught us all a lesson, hasn't it? It has reminded us, of all people, of the immense power of true solidarity. Let's learn from it. Let's turn the page and turn our fire on the Tories. While we've been turning inwards, they've been taking liberties, bringing back selection in our schools, abandoning promises to the north, plotting a hardline, right-wing Brexit that burns Britain's bridges. We're the only hope for people who don't want that. Yes, Labour must listen to our voters who voted to leave. But let's be the champions of a fair Brexit, not a hard Brexit. A hard Brexit will hurt our economy, hit the poorest areas hardest, and turn Britain into a place it has never been: divided, hostile, narrow-minded. That is how the world is starting to see us. They think we've changed. After the referendum, the Prime Minister could have done one simple thing to correct that. She could have secured the status of EU nationals who chose to make this their home. People who work in our NHS and care for our relatives, who make a net contribution to our public finances, whose children are now facing taunts of "go home" in the playground, whose homes have been sprayed with swastikas, whose cars have been pasted with the words "Polish vermin." She could have done something to help them, but she chose not to. And things are not improving. There is a frightening spike in hate crimes. A young man stabbed in the neck with a broken bottle in Telford earlier this month for speaking Polish on a night out. And the death of a Polish man in Harlow just for speaking his language in the street. This is Britain in 2016. Conference, what are we becoming? When I called a vote on the status of EU nationals in Parliament, even Boris Johnson voted with Labour and said the Leave campaign had never threatened to send anybody home. But it seems our new Prime Minister is now positioning herself to the right of the Leave campaign. At every stage of the biggest refugee crisis since the end of the Second World War, she has dragged her feet. As Europe has struggled with the enormity of it, Britain has looked wrapped up in its own selfish little world. It has been left to the courage of people like Alf Dubs and Yvette Cooper to stand up for basic British decency. And Conference, let us today again thank them both for it. And now Theresa May rules out a points-based system for EU migration, saying it is not tough enough. Where is this heading, Prime Minister? This is not taking our country back. It is turning us into something we have never, ever been. It will end up punishing everyone. It risks isolating Britain, damaging our economy, and creating even more hostility on our streets. It will lead to a tit-for-tat battle with the EU and the spectre of a US-style ESTA on British travellers, a £50 holiday tax on a family of 5. That's not what people want, and it is why they need us to speak up for them. Let Labour stand for a fair Brexit, not a hard Brexit, that is true to Britain's past, protects our economy, but crucially, also provides the change that people voted for. Conference, this party must fully face up to this fact. Millions of lifelong Labour supporters voted to leave the EU, and let's be honest, they voted for change on immigration. We haven't yet even begun to show them that we understand why. And I don't want to hear this party make the patronising argument that people didn't understand their referendum vote. They understood it very well. The truth is the EU was working better for some parts of our country than it was for others. For some of our country's least affluent areas, it wasn't working well at all. Now remember, these were the places that lost industry in the 1980s and 1990s, and no government of any side did anything like enough to give them help to get good jobs back. No government did. Places like my constituency. These are places that saw house prices collapse and whole terrace streets bought up by absent private landlords. Places that then experienced even more rapid social change when the EU expanded. Cuts to wages, job insecurity, more pressure on primary schools and GP services. But, once again, no extra help from the government to cope with it all. And in fact, it's even worse than that. They're the same council areas which have had the biggest cuts from the Tories and are left to take practically all of the country's asylum seekers, while more comfortable areas like the Prime Minister's constituency take none at all. We have to ask ourselves, Conference, is that fair on them? No wonder this feels like two countries. No wonder some places feel forgotten and abandoned by the political class. Europe wasn't working for them, and we were way too slow to see it. Labour voters in constituencies like mine are not narrow-minded nor xenophobic, as some would claim. They are warm and giving. Their parents and grandparents welcomed thousands of Ukrainians and Poles to Lee after the Second World War. And today, they continue to welcome refugees from all over the world. They have no problem with people coming here to work, but they do have a problem with people taking them for granted and with unlimited, unfunded, unskilled migration, which damages their own living standards. And I tell you what, they have an even bigger problem with an out-of-touch elite who doesn't seem to care about any of the issues that they are facing. If Labour now argues for the status quo, it will look like we have abandoned them too. So let's develop a plan for a fair Brexit that deals with these concerns, but which also supports our economy and keeps the Britain we have known open, welcoming, playing its part in the world. Because the truth is, Conference, a hard Brexit would hit these Labour areas hardest of all. The vote in June, though, was about much more than immigration in Europe. It was actually a cry for real change in the way our country works. The truth is this: Westminster, over decades, has failed the north of England. It has created a very unequal country, unequal access to truth and justice, an unfair distribution of wealth, health, and life chances. Two countries. Theresa May's response has been to threaten to pull the plug on the Northern powerhouse and Tory promises of investment here. If you do, Prime Minister, it will be as big a betrayal of the North as Margaret Thatcher's in the 1980s. Surely the right answer to Brexit is to deepen the commitment to the Northern powerhouse, not abandon it. Try and catch a train from Lime Street later today to Manchester, Leeds or the North East, as many of you no doubt will. Then compare it to a journey in the South East. You would think you were in a different country. 32 years ago, I joined Labour just 20 miles down the road from here towards Manchester to even things up, to make this a country of justice. And I'm still fighting now because progress has been far too slow. If anything, the gap has got wider. My 15 years in Westminster have told me that there isn't a real will in the British establishment to close that gap, to listen to the people here. For 20 years, it ignored the cries of justice from this city. If it could have ignored them in perpetuity, it would. And just like now, it tries to ignore the Birmingham families, the Orgreave and Shrewsbury campaigners, and those who suffer from contaminated blood. After the referendum, it is trying to go back to business as usual. Well, I'm not going to let that happen, because that will create a crisis in our democracy and a field day for those who want to peddle hate and division. Out there, there's a demand for big changes in the way this country is run. This party should be the voice for that change. That is why I am ready to leave Westminster. It's time to make a change, to challenge the status quo from the outside. It's time to get the voice of the North heard like it has never been heard before, for Northern Labour to come to life. It is time for Northern Labour to come to life. Let's seize this moment, put our stamp on devolution and make it a Labour campaign for a more equal England. Conference, I thank all of you from the bottom of my heart for the support you have given me over the last 10 years. You have given me the strength to do things I never thought I could. And in my new capacity, you can help me do even more. In case you didn't get the hint, that means you are all expected in Greater Manchester next year to help with the campaign. Whatever happens, you know me. You know I will always be there fighting for this great Labour Party. It is still the best hope for millions of ordinary working people. And I know you'll be there fighting for it too. So keep the faith. Keep fighting the good fight for one country, not two. For a country of justice, a country where no area is forgotten, where North and South are equals, where people who come here from around the world are welcomed as friends, where no kid is labelled second class at age 11, where ordinary people no longer have to plead for the truth, where bereaved families are never put on trial, where justice doesn't take 27 years. A country of justice, forever Labour's fight, and the legacy we owe to those 96 lost souls.
Thank you so very much for that, Andy, and I know I speak for the whole of conference when I say that we're all with you in the campaign and every success. Conference, we must now take the votes on this morning's business. Contemporary Composite 11 on child refugees was moved by Walthamstow CLP. Can I see all those in favour, please? And all those against? Carried unanimously, I think. The Home Affairs Policy Commission Annual Report. Can I see all those in favour, please? And those against? And the Home Affairs Policy Commission Priorities Issue Document. Can I see all those in favour? And those against? Those are carried. Thank you, Conference. In a second, I will hand over the chair to Paddy Lillis. Before I do, I just wanted to say, this is my last duty as an NEC member. Six years ago, I stood for the NEC to give voice to grassroots activists, and I hope that during that time, I've fulfilled on my promise to put members first. I've always tried to make sure that you know what's going on at the NEC and that your views are known to our leadership. I've always sought to speak truth to power, and for the duration of the 6 years I've been on the NEC, I've sought a permanent voting position for Scotland and Wales on the NEC. And I'm very proud, Conference, that you agreed that yesterday. Because that fight for people like me who are from small town on the west of Scotland is not about internal politics. It was about recognising the devolved settlement across our nations. I just want to say thank you to everybody who has supported me in my time as an NEC member, all of you at Conference, the members beyond, members of party staff who don't get recognised enough. It's been an honour and a privilege, and I look forward to seeing you on the Labour doorstep.
Conference. We have had a great conference here in Liverpool with inspirational speeches and passionate debate. We would like to thank all the following organisations and their staff that have helped us with the organisation and delivery of this conference. Exhibition Centre Liverpool, Liverpool City Council, Merseyside Police, Barefoot Live, Broadsworth Productions, Prompt Action, OCS Solutions, Mobile Crash Company, Slick, North West Ambulance Service, RNIB, Local Solutions Mobility, Dime Events, Mindus Displays, EPLS Electrics, and of course our Labour Party stewards. Conference, on a personal note, I want to record my thanks to the members of the CAC who worked tirelessly throughout conference to help us make sure it's a success. So to Harry and his colleagues, I say thank you. I also want to thank our party staff, including our General Secretary Ian McNichol. Too often their work behind the scenes goes unnoticed, but without it we would not be able to achieve half the things we do as a party. And I want to give my personal thanks to you, the members of the party, who, whether first-time delegates or long-standing veterans, have attended conference and contributed to our debates and discussions. as well as the hundreds of thousands of members who aren't with us in Liverpool, but through their commitment and hard work, week in and week out, make Labour the campaign and force that it is in our local communities across the country. Finally, colleagues, please be in your seats by 2:15 for the Leader's speech, after which conference will close in the traditional way with singing the red flag and Jerusalem. Thank you all. Conference stands adjourned till 2:15.